Hey everybody, it's Mark Arnstein from Remax Hallmark and of course livingnorthtoronto.com. This is the Mark Arnstein Show. I'm here actually with a very special guest, my very good friend, Miss Laira Thomas. How you doing, Laira?
Good, how are you?
Good, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
To give you a quick introduction to everybody who's watching or listening about Laira, she's been happily married for over 22 years to an amazing partner, Ron. From the beginning, they've worked on communication, intimacy, and keeping an active and playful sex life. We continue to fill our personal and couple needs while we raise 3 incredible children and a dog. She's had 3 years of intensive course on choice theory and reality therapy, and she's currently studying for a BA in psychology. And for the last 3 years, she's been studying dialectical behavior therapy in a weekly group. I'm going to get back to that in 1 second because I don't know what that is. Her thoughts and beliefs are connections fill you up, and whatever your needs and wants. Do you know what you crave in relationships with people around you? And when you use your voice to articulate your needs, your levels of satisfaction are heightened. And of course, we can't leave out sex. We have to talk about it. Having sex and being intimate releases actual chemicals that heighten your level of happiness. We won't go into too much science about that, apparently according to Laira, but there are other facts and fun little ways to spice things up. So her goal is to encourage connections instead of enabling distance. And theory is let's all sit a little closer on the couch. Now, before we get into too much of the conversation, she is going to be doing a festival called the Ritual Fall Harvest Festival Retreat, which is a full-day wellness experience in nature by Lake Simcoe. And all foods and drinks will be included. And the attendees will get the opportunity to participate in various sessions, such as movement, somatic therapy, which I'm going to get back to that in 1 second, self-compassion, cooking demo, intimacy 101, and breath work and sound bath. I got to know what that is too. So there's a lot of questions I got highlighted in here that I want to talk to you about. So, and the course is $275, which is priced until September 30th. It's $300 after that until October 7th, and then $325 until the retreat begins. But if you use the discount code of Laira10, you will receive an extra 10% off, which is awesome. So
that's right.
Yay. Okay. All right. So
a whole lot of information.
Yeah, I know. Like, wow. Okay, where do we start? So let's talk about sex, baby. I mean, that's, and I think it's kind of an apropos topic, and it kind of works well with what we did our podcast on yesterday, which was more for teenagers and kids. And we had a young guy on who's 22 years old named Sam Dema, who goes around to schools and does a lot of public speaking about the whole thing about empty your backpack. And just get all that weight off your shoulders and, be able to communicate and articulate for kids' perspective. But this is now for adults, which I think is actually really cool. And given what had happened with COVID, and I hate bringing it up, but it is really a fact of life. We kind of have to address the elephant in the room. It's either had a massive negative impact, unfortunately, or it's had a really positive impact, fantastically, on relationships and marriages, depending on where people stand. So I think what you're tying into all this is actually really apropos. So let's just kind of dive into it. So you guys claim you have a very playful sex relationship, so which is really awesome. So how do you?
Your husband's gonna die.
Well, we'll keep it on the cute. So explain to me, how does one go about doing that? I mean, on a basic level. I mean, I know you're more of a facilitator than you are like a counselor therapist, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, thank you for saying that. Yeah. I just want to make it very clear. I'm not a doctor at all. And so really, I do like to call myself a facilitator. I am working towards, being a therapist, but I think, it's very complicated. And I also think being able to even say the word sex or talk about sex for a lot of people is uncomfortable, right? Even though it's such a natural thing to do. And a lot of us who have children, clearly we've done it, right?
Right. So, well, it's crazy. You think about it, it's 2022 and it's still really and especially the way things have changed in society too, with all the different, way people identify themselves and everything else. It's crazy. It's so sex, ooh, giddy, right?
And keeping up with that too. I mean, certainly I have teenagers, so there's so much open conversation and dialogue about all of that and being aware of it, and I think that if you want to get into, not specifics, but into specifics, there's so much that happens before even talking about sex, really being able to enable conversations and connections with your partners and also then with yourself, right? I actually just had this conversation on the weekend that, to talk to somebody and say, well, you should be having more sex in your relationship, but those two people aren't even sitting on the same couch watching TV. There's a really long range here. And how do we start that? How do we sit a little closer on the couch? How do you
Right.
put your hand on somebody's arm while they're driving? How do you communicate during the day nice things that you like about your partner, or say thank you when they've done something you like all of these little things add up to a moment where you feel like being intimate, right?
Right.
If those things aren't happening, how do you even feel like being intimate? So
Yeah.
right, and when you talk about being playful, it doesn't necessarily mean about being wild and toys and all of that kind of extremism that
Right.
people are making. It's just about sending little texts, or my husband works from home, so sending a message being like, where are you? Like just little things that can kind of be playful, or going for a walk and asking, questions about what do you like when we're having sex? What is working for you? Or there's so many different things that you can do that are little for some people who are even just trying to make it happen. As I said, putting your arm on somebody's putting your hand on somebody's arm while you're driving, or on their leg, which is a very intimate thing to do, but it could be the first step for somebody who's really separated from their partner, to, going to your husband's office wearing, a jacket that's pretty revealing, that's pretty risque, but also, again, depending on who you are, can spice things up. So I think for me to get people talking about that and engage in activities and conversations at home, it's going to help. It makes a big difference.
No, for sure. I mean, it's funny, you think about it, like, when you start dating, right? Like those are all the things when you do when you first start to date, right? And then, as life goes on, eventually the courtship kind of, you get to the point where you get engaged, and then you get married, and, start having a family and having kids and the dog and all those other things. And the sweatpants come on, right? Let's call a spade a spade. When those sweatpants come on, like you're done for the night, right? Like it is what.
I mean, depending, are you wearing anything under them? I mean, I don't know, right? That's what I mean.
Yeah. So it's funny, like how we forget to kind of like you get so caught up in life, and you forget about taking that time just for you and your partner, right?
Yeah.
And even like it's like doing like a overnight getaway, even a staycay, and just having that little bit of time. Like we try and make Saturday nights, we try and go out every Saturday night, because like that's just a night that we get to be for the two of us, and whether it's with friends or just us on our own, that it's our time to be together. And I think like what you're saying, like it's so important.
I think it's so important, and it can be something so small. I'm trying to see if I have it here. I don't, but I have this amazing book. For a lot of people, it would be sort of cheesy, but it's a thing that you do with your partner, that where you answer questions about each other. So, you can, what do you like about me? Or do you remember our first date? Or what would be a great line that you would tell somebody else? Like, it's this amazing book, and I love it. And once in a while, like we spend 5 minutes. I'll say, come to the bedroom, and we answer like 2 or 3 questions, but it's just, again, it's our quiet, intimate moment between the two of us. And sometimes it's really surprising. It's like, oh, I didn't know that about you, or I didn't know you liked that, or that's so funny, I said the same thing, just little ways that you can connect and communicate, going for a walk on Saturday mornings, or I remember my parents used to have this thing where they would come home from work and they would go into their bedroom and shut the door. And it was very clear that that was their half an hour. Do not disturb them. And they weren't having sex. What they were doing was, unloading their day and connecting with each other, and just taking 5 minutes to regroup with each other as human beings before they became a part of the family. Right. Because really, there's one person, like you are your own individual person before you were a partner, before you were a parent, before you were a dog owner or a friend or any of those things. If you aren't taking care of yourself and your needs, how can you then give your best to other people? So what I was saying at the beginning is, for a lot of people, even that's the beginning and really important stage and step to becoming more intimate or having more sex with your partners.
Right. Well, I mean, and it comes down to like communication is the key. I mean, to anything really, if you think about it. I mean, whether And, it's like, even like, recognizing, knowing when your partner is not ready to have sex at that point, and knowing when they are ready, and, or just like, hey, right now you just need a hug, right?
Yeah.
Like just that emotional support, that just, cause like, cause that is intimacy, right? And just being like a good listener, and then listening to what they have to say, and and being engaged in the conversation. And of course, the old right can really get in the way for a lot of this too, because like, and again, it's the same conversation we were having yesterday with Sam, which is on a different level now. Instead of kids, it's adults. But like, being distracted by the things that are going on around you is supposed to be engaged in the moment that you're in.
Absolutely. And I think, I mean, it makes me crazy, and it's so hard not to be judgmental, but you go out for dinner, and you see these people who are out for dinner and they're on their phones, like they're not even having a conversation, or these families who go out for dinner and their kids are on iPads, or I don't understand. Like, I mean, in some cases, I get it. You have a kid who can't concentrate and who can't focus, but isn't that the moment to engage? Isn't that the moment to, I mean, maybe not every day, maybe not every dinner, but isn't that an opportunity to sort of like start the communication and take 5 minutes?
Yeah, I mean, I think definitely I agree. I think you gotta like, I understand when they're little, like, because you need to go for dinner, say it's a family dinner, whatever, you gotta like, and they're too young to fit into the conversation. But eventually they're gonna become a massive crutch, or you gotta know how to weed them off, so that they can be able to get back engaged into the conversation and join in on the, otherwise you're gonna have a kid who's gonna be constantly glued to their screen the whole entire time and never be able to communicate.
Yeah, I mean, that's like a whole other conversation. It's a whole other situation, which I mean, that's a whole thing.
Okay. Dialectical behavior. What the heck is that?
Okay, so I'm not an expert again. So there's cognitive therapy, and then there's dialectical behavioral therapy. So the basic of dialectical is that two things can be true at exactly the same time. And so that particular therapy is often used for people, mostly younger people, who are what they call super feelers. So people whose emotions are and behaviors are and can be extreme. And so there is a phenomenal place called Broadview Psychology that does parent groups, and they do weekly sessions. And so for years, every week, we have been, and I have been doing sessions to learn about how to be the best parent that I can be, how to help my children, how to help a super feeler, which we have in our family. And I think if a lot of people do in their family. So for me, that particular form of therapy really taught us how to be able to validate our kids, learn when we're invalidating them without even knowing it. It taught us to really focus on a wise mind. So there's, the emotional mind, which I am, and then there's the logical mind, which my husband is, the fixer, the one who's always going to like the wound, and kind of come together and be that, that wise mind. So what I noticed over the years, because it's been a while, is that when we as parents change our way and change what we're doing, the children start to change their way and what they're doing. And it's this really beautiful cycle where we change and they change. And once they start to change, we change. You're talking about these kids whose brains are not even close to being fully developed. I mean, not until we're like, almost 27. And you're asking them to be different and to change, and it's just not going to happen. So what can we do that's going to make a difference? And for us, I mean, it was a drastic change in the dynamics of the relationships with our kids. I'm not perfect. Yesterday, I wanted to leave the house and find a new family, but it's really helpful, and it's an incredible thing that I highly recommend people look into if you find that you have a emotionally or behavioral issues in your family.
Right. Okay. Now, before I get into some of the next questions, just to backtrack this a little bit, you came from a fitness background.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So what made you decide to do the pivot?
For the last, I guess, decade, maybe before, I was teaching kickboxing, and I was at Studio Agree, and I loved it. And while I was doing that, I was partners in a beautiful day spa at Avenue Eglinton called K Bella Spa, and just kind of mixing the two of them together. And when COVID hit, everything sort of stopped. Both of those businesses completely shut down. And I just thought to myself, you've always wanted to get into this field. It's always been something that I've been interested in. And for years, as I said, I've taken all sorts of different courses and really just never taken the leap. I think maybe just being scared and maybe not believing in myself enough.
Right.
And COVID hit, and I picked up my family and we moved to Costa Rica, as you know.
Yeah.
And I just thought, okay, well, what am I going to do? So I decided to go get my BA in psychology. And so last year was my first year, and I'm on the road and just kind of putting stuff in my backpack to, get into that field.
Awesome.
Yeah.
It's interesting just hearing the different stories of the different pivots that people have made because of COVID. So like everything in life, there's a negative and there's a positive, right? So, obviously the negative from COVID was that we were locked down and a lot of businesses unfortunately suffered and got shut down because of it. But in the meantime, people like yourself and I guess we had on a couple of weeks ago, were able to do these complete pivots to start something that they never would have had an opportunity to do if it wasn't for COVID. So,
right.
Which is kind of cool. And if you think about, you try and pull the positive out of everything that you can, and you can look at it from that perspective, which is neat that because of this, it gave you that opportunity to do what you're doing now.
Absolutely. And there's, listen, for our kids, it wasn't, positive and most across the board. Mental health right now is at its peak. I have friends who are in the business, and my mom's a parent coach. She's in the business, and they can't even take the people that are raising their hand for help. It's awful. It's terrible.
Oh, yeah.
So in that way, it's been a negative. But I think for a lot of people who are willing to kind of go, wait a second, this is my chance. What can I do, and where do I want to go, and how can I change things up? If you can, it's like, let's do it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of, it's scary for sure.
Yeah, and, for sure.
And it's like, but yeah, it's exciting.
Yeah, well, I can see it in your face, right? Like every time you start to talk about it, your face lights up, right? So,
yeah.
which is great. That's neat. That just shows the passion that you have for what you're going to be doing. And, obviously with passion means that you care and you're really invested in what you're doing, which makes a big difference in the people you're going to be trying to help and facilitate and service with, right? So, which is huge. Somatic therapy. What the heck is that?
You know what? I'm going to be going, so I'm going to learn all about it. That's actually one of them that I don't know. I'm not familiar with.
Oh, well, that just takes the wind out of my sails on that question. Okay,
I'm so sorry. I'm looking forward to the breath work, though, and I'm really looking forward to the sound bath. That's amazing.
What's that?
It's beautiful. So they have these bowls. They're crystal bowls, and each one of them is one note. And depending on how they're played, there's echoes and sounds, and it's really like you can feel it in your gut, and it's a very relaxing. It's meditation. It's a form of meditation, and I love it. I love it. Even if you're not a yogi, even if you're not, I don't meditate at all. I probably should, but I don't. But it's amazing. Any chance I get, I take a class. It's beautiful, and if you like music, you'll really connect to it.
Well, it's interesting you talk about the meditation part of it because so I'm involved in it's called the Mastery Advisories Council through a coaching program that I do, and so once a month we have come together as a group and they bring in a guest speaker. And so the speaker we had earlier in the week was Dr. Greg Wells, who is a doctor out of Sick Kids here in Toronto, and you just it's interesting. He talks about the 4 different categories of your health and how important it is to maintain. And obviously one is sleep, right? Nutrition, your level of exercise, and obviously your 4th one is your mental health. And he's saying, even if you just take like 5 to 15 minutes a day at the start of your day before you start doing your craziness, and just close your eyes and just get out of your space and just get yourself grounded before you start the day, makes a massive difference in the world and how you function and how you communicate and how you just move about your course of your day.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I find anytime I do it, like if I do go to a yoga class or if I do go to one of these amazing retreats, or I always say, why am I doing this more? Like I really pay attention to it. And I think to myself, like, I don't understand. Like for me, I'm an up person. So
Yeah.
it's like so nice to just sort of like take 5 minutes to breathe. Actually, and one of the DBT skills is taking a second to stop and just breathing and kind of connecting to yourself for a minute before you take action or before you say something, before you do
Hmm.
something. So it's and I'm actually thrilled that it's become such a trend, because it is very trendy to, meditate and to have books that talk about what you're grateful for. And I think that it's a beautiful trend. I hope it doesn't go anywhere. Yeah.
Well, and it's interesting because like I saw when I was on a call, I was talking about, because my boys both play competitive hockey and talked about this numerous times, and and even for Maya, who's like he's getting into doing like musicals and plays through school, and just taking that time before you're about to start something, whether it be like a game, practice, a presentation at school, a performance, a speech, whatever it's going to be, and just taking one or two just to center yourself, get into that calm state, and then move it forward to go and do what you're about to do. And it actually makes, and they've done testing on this,
Yeah.
that the results that you at levels that you perform at are actually much greater and much higher than if you hadn't taken those few minutes to do that before you started.
Absolutely. I mean, it's true, and I know it because when I do it myself, it makes a big difference. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, no, definitely. Okay, so in all of this, I mean, again, what you're facilitating, and so as a facilitator, now is it going to be more like a group style session where it's like and then people kind of just talking, kind of you kind of throw out ideas as a facilitator, or how's it going to work?
For this particular session that I'm
Mhm.
doing at the Ritual Harvest Retreat, yes, it's going to be a session that people can come to. There'll be a number of people. And I obviously have a structured plan for it, but it
Right.
will be a conversation. For people who want to do one-on-one sessions with me, yeah, it will be a conversation that we're having about what's happening in people's lives, how to make connections with yourself, how to make connections with the people in your lives, in your relationships, how to begin an intimacy level that may be different or better or stronger than where you are, how to change up your sex life, how to spice up your sex life. Those are the type of conversations that I hope to have with people and couples, and even relationships with parents and their kids.
Right.
There's a lot to be said about really understanding how to make the connections that you want, and understand what it is that you both need out of them.
Right. Right. Now, okay, I know you can't give us away at the full enchilada here. But I mean, if you're going to say, I mean, we talked about it really briefly in the beginning here, but just, starting that conversation, with your partner as to like, how just broach it. Like, how do you say, like, if I say we're married, and I'm like, hey, Laira, do you like how we're having how would you have that conversation?
You know what, you start small depending on the person. So as I said, like even if you on Saturday are walking the dog, and let's say you happen to have had sex in the last couple of days, looking at your partner and saying, I really enjoyed our time together on Tuesday night. What did you like
Right.
about our experience? What do you like what I do in the bedroom? I really like it when you do this. Right now, that's for somebody who's maybe able to say it out loud, or
Right.
even sending a text message. By the way, last night was super fun. When you do this, I really enjoy it.
Right.
Or even, by the way, last night was really wonderful. Right. And that just tells your partner that, A, you're complimenting. That was nice. I like that. And also being able to have the dialogue just start really slightly.
Yeah.
Or even, oh, I was talking to my girlfriend and she said, what do you think about that?
Right.
Right. Like there's so many ways that you can do it in a subtle way, and then also just straight up. please do this.
Yeah, yeah.
You can really, it depends on how comfortable you are. And I
Right.
think that what I was saying at the beginning, to figure out how you are comfortable to begin with. Like if you're asking someone to be able to have that conversation with their partner who is so uncomfortable with themselves, has no idea what they want or need out of a relationship, they're never going to get to stage 5 when they have
Right.
to start at the beginning, at stage
Right.
1.
Right.
So those are the type of things that, we sort of touched on, a journal, or, writing down kind of, what do I need? What's not working for me? What is working for me? How do I say this? And those are the type of things I would love to be able to help people do.
Right.
So it's not just about, how to make your sex life spicier. For some people, yes, for sure. Let's get into that right away. But for some people, it's right at the beginning. Like, I don't even know how to have that conversation with my husband because we're not even having sex. That was one of the things that we really want to talk about at this retreat is what, so Dr. Jody Larry is one of the person who is running the retreat. And she said to me, people out there are not having sex and we need to talk about that. We need to figure that out. So for the people who aren't, let's start from the very beginning. Like, why not? Why is that happening? Right?
Yeah. No, it's interesting because my wife and I have always kind of said, like, you have conversations with people, and and they bring up, oh yeah, my wife and I, we have sex all the time, like, we'll just pull the car over to the side of the road and go for it. I'm like, no, something's not right there, like, and then sure enough later, they're now divorced and separated or whatever, like, so, or then it's like, the couple of just, like, you just are miserable, and you're like trying, why are they always seeing? And you find out, like, it's because they are never intimate with each other, right? So it's it's great because, like you said earlier, it's like communication is such a massive part of this, right? And we're so quick to communicate with others about the things we need and we want, but yet we forget to do it back at home, which is where the foundation really actually has to be. And one of the things I thought you said was interesting earlier too is but with the kids, and this, it's just about how you can influence and develop and change them, because really, it's like leadership by example. It starts at the top and works right down.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I mean, I think I really think it's a big deal. And listen, there are the people out there who are pulling over on the side of the road and having sex. And I think that's incredible. Good for them. That may not be you or I. Like, I know my husband would be way too stressed out about the car to do that. And that's okay. You know what I mean? That's okay. That's his thing, But, like, if they are doing that, I think that's incredible. And that would be for sure something I would say to somebody on the way to the cottage: pull over, like, put the back seat down, go for it. Like, what? So fun. Like, did you do that when you were dating? Did you not do that when you were dating? And then there's even the basics of people who are literally scheduling it. Tuesday evenings is our night. We have sex. And for some people, you think, like, that's super odd. You're going to schedule it. And it's like, yes, you are, because it shows it's important. It shows you have a commitment to each other, and it makes sure that you're having an intimate moment. And the science behind it, and as I said, I'm not a doctor, and I'm certainly, not a scientist, but there are a ton of studies for women and men that talk about orgasms lowering your cortisol levels. And we know that that's like a really negative thing in your body, and keeping that low is really awesome. And that's an actual fact. It's a scientific fact. There's also the idea that when you're having sex, the more sex you're having, it heightens your levels of happiness, let's say, right? For lack of a better term. And so once that level is up, if you continue to have sex on a regular basis, it stays at a higher level, right? And it also not only stays at a higher level, but it stays at a higher level for longer.
Right.
So in between Tuesday and Sunday, your levels are higher, right? So there's really, like, for a lot of people, other than actual medical reasons, which people have, there's really not a negative to having more sex, right? And for people out there, there are some amazing doctors who can help, who, if there's physical problems, you definitely want to check that out. Don't ignore it, because that just doesn't feel good, and it can really block the connection that you're having in your relationship as well.
Well, it's kind of like sex and exercise. They kind of go together.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, think about it, right? Both create endorphins. Both things make you happy and make you feel good. So, right. I'm not saying, don't do just one or the other, but I mean, like, definitely, well, I mean, one could be on a regular basis.
And you schedule that. Like you sign up for a class, you have to book your personal trainer, people do that. So why aren't you schedule dinner with your friends? Like, why not schedule, a moment with your partner?
Right. And then, and again, I guess the other way to look at it too is like once you get into like a better routine, then the scheduling might actually kind of pull off a bit, because then you'll just be becoming more like, just naturally spontaneous or naturally having it in its own way that is consistent, as opposed to saying like, it's going to be every, Monday night at 9 p.m. once the kids are in bed, where this is what we're doing. Right. So.
Yeah. And it kind of creates this little thing, like you come home on Tuesdays and it's like, you kind of look forward to it, or like there's a look that you can give your partner. Like, intimacy is so much, it's actually nothing to do with sex. Intimacy is so many amazing things, little comments and little notes. I have these incredible notes that I put on like my husband's drawer, put on the mirror, and they're like a little like, oh, you're looking so sexy today, or I love it when we hug, or like they're just these cute little stickers. I think I bought them at Indigo. And again, it's not a big deal, but I love it. And he's like, when he pulls out a t-shirt, he like sees the little sticker on, and it's just another way to connect.
Yeah. No, for sure. And again, I think, like I said earlier, when we talked about this, like, like unfortunately, like, I think especially with COVID, I mean, like this, either you were able to do this even more so and better, or it got unfortunately worse. And if it's gotten worse, then all the more reason to kind of get involved in something like this, to kind of, take care of it before it gets even worse and go down a rabbit hole that you really don't want to go down, just because of, a crazy thing called a pandemic.
Yeah.
So, okay. If people want to register and get involved in this amazing Ritual Fall Harvest Retreat, where do they go? How do they sign up? How do they register?
They should look up Jody Larry. The session is in there. There is a website they could go to, which is, let me get it for you. It is Jody with an I, LarryND.com, and you'll find her rituals are all there. Okay. Her retreats. Yeah.
So what we'll do is when we post the podcast, I'll make sure we put the link into the comments so everyone can have it and go from there. And remember, if you do use the code Laira10, you'll get an extra 10% off. Yeah. And if you register before the 30th, it's $275. If it's until October 7th, it's $300. And if you do it after that, it's $325. Right? Did I get that right? Yeah.
It's going to be a really nice day. It's outside and it's beautiful. And, she really curates something special. So I think everyone will have a good time, meet new people. Yeah.
Awesome. Laira, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate your time. No, it's been awesome. Always a pleasure to see you and hang out. And if anyone wants to reach out to you, contact you, ask you any questions, are you open to that? Like, do you want to?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Go for it.
Oh, well, they can just email me. It's lairathomas@gmail.com.
Perfect. And otherwise, thank you so much. And I look forward to seeing you again soon.
See you soon.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.